No way, Jose.
The following footage proves beyond any doubt that the tanks intentionally set the house on fire. It proves that the Branch Davidians were murdered. You can see that this tank has a gas jet on the front that shoots fire. You can also see the fire quite plainly. The tank goes into the house twice, and each time as it backs out, the fire at the gas jet is plainly visible.
We must all do more to recognize and look for the early warning signals that deeply troubled young people send.
Good morning. Welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. This is the evening dump, and this is Jose Galison, today's host. I do want to let you guys know, last time we did a mix-up like this, I had I don't know how many questions of like, is this a thing now? Are we doing nighttime dumps? Are we doing evening dumps? No, the idea is that it's morning dumps, but every now and then something happens, and for whatever reason, I can't make that morning. The goal is 5 to 7 days a week. I think we hit 5 in the past week, so if we're counting today as not having a morning dump and yesterday, because we weren't able to yesterday, I worked yesterday. That would be 2, losses of a morning dump. So that'd be 5 out of 7. But I'm still, here we go. I'm making up. We're doing an evening dump. So that's kind of 6 out of 7. So just know that's what's going on here. When you see evening dumps, nighttime dumps, it's the same exact format as the dump is a dead giveaway. That doesn't mean we're doing a regular. This doesn't mean we're changing to the evening dumps. If we ever do, for whatever reason, it becomes that evenings work better for me, then we will start doing evening dumps, and I will let you guys know. But until then, it's going to be morning dumps. 10 a.m. Eastern is the goal. Every now and then, the goal is not attained, and we, either don't do an episode that day, or we do something like we're doing today, where we make it up. So today we are doing an evening dump. I have some stuff to go through with you guys, and I really just wanted to get in the gym. Get in. This is what we're calling this, the gym. Working through some stuff. There's some stuff I wanted to work through my head before I go on Tinfoil Hat this week, and also William Ramsey, because it's both of them are having the similar topics. We're I'm going to be talking about the Dutroux affair on I'm having a brain fire. I do the Dutroux affair on. I'm doing the Dutroux affair on Ramsey's show this week, so. I want to dig into some more into that. Also, it's a very, very much ties into the theme of this week's Tinfoil Hat. So it's kind of homework. So we're going to do some homework. I'll save the homework towards the end, since I don't know to what extent you guys like these sort of deep readings where we take like a long topic, especially something so niche like that. But I'll save that for the end. That plus it's pretty explicit content sometimes when it comes to Dutroux affair stuff. Sometimes it's not too bad and it's just violence, but every now and then they'll shock you with some awful, horrendous stuff. But speaking of awful, horrendous stuff, I do want you guys to know tomorrow at 9:30 I have on Stephen DeLay on to do an analysis of True Detective Season 1. But I just say True Detective because I don't even... to me, the other ones aren't going to exist. I haven't even watched the other ones, so it's not like me saying that and like I've watched the show and so they suck. Everyone's told me they suck. They're not necessarily tied into the first season anyways. So it's like, to me, and I'm not someone who watches a ton of TV, so I'm perfectly content with just not ruining my experience of True Detective and leaving it at Season 1, because Season 1 was a phenomenal piece of television, and I think that's where I'll leave it at. And I don't want to watch a lot of TV, so it's not like I need TV to fill my life, so I don't need to do the other seasons. But I will say, for those out there, especially parapolitical heads like us, you need to watch True Detective, and we will be covering it on this... on Sunday. I even kicking around an idea of maybe doing like doing for every True Detective episode, maybe doing one. So here we go. CSATP says others don't suck; they are just following one of the best pieces of TV ever. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I've heard that too. It's just that if to me, it's just like I have such a high level of anything I need to like TV. It has to be something I'm super interested in. So that one was phenomenal. If the other ones were just like okay or good, not interested. True Detective season 1, phenomenal. All right, we got a guest for you guys today too. I try to make it up for you. What's up, Tyler? We have Tyler Yonke, the host of the Libertarian Podcast Review. Also, he is our producer on Tower Gang. So I put out the back call to the group. Said anyone who wants to come, first come, first serve. Don't worry, we're not getting any more. That's not what this show is. We were not doing. I think probably one guest max is the most really this format allows for. So I bring some
when the
along.
other guys come on, I'll just hop off. So,
no, I'll tell them to fuck off.
Look, I got weeds in my hair. I've been not doing yard work.
Honestly, this may sound kind of fucked up, but like really for these morning dump ones, I don't particularly want any of the other guys except for Clint. I had Clint on last time. I enjoyed that. I think he makes a good guest for these morning dumps. Top would be okay, depending on what the topics are. And really, I have no real interest to have Toad or Cole on for a morning dump. I don't really feel like I love them both, but I don't really feel like they have a niche to fill in this format personally.
True.
So yeah. So you are surprisingly on the top of the list amongst that group.
I don't know what that says, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, but it's for just a kind of a serious, but also kind of conspiracy tinted coverage of. Kind of, I guess the news. This show is really just kind of like a bookmark thing. Like see, even Pistolero, who came from Tower Gang, he agrees. He is a Tower Gang. I know for a fact because I literally met him in the Tower Gang Telegram that he comes from Tower Gang. Like he didn't come like meet me and then meet Tower Gang. Like no, he originates from Tower Gang, and even he is like good thinking. Yep, it's a Clint or Tyler for this format. The other two. Not so much. By the way, I do want to say I see some of y'all in the chat. So Tim Tuttle, I want to say good morning, but it's not morning. So what's up, Tyler?
Well, it is for me. It's 10:58, so I'm still morning. And by the way, I need to have you back on my show. I think I only had you once, and we see each other every week. So, but I need to bring you back in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't really know what the format of your show is these days. So.
I don't either. I mean, Nick Rekieta, put coke in his kids, and I started doing shows on that, and my channel was gaining followers because of it. And I'm like, okay, well, here we go.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, hell, it's funny. Before this, I got off the phone with Top because we were talking about just kind of art stuff because he kind of stopped producing merch for the show a while back, and I told him like. I went on the phone with him today. I was like, hey, I'm pretty sure, just let him know, like, hey, between me and Austin, Already Dead, like, Underclass, No Way Jose, I was like, I think we're going to do some big things this year. Austin's doing seems like almost a regular paywalled show with Sam Tripoli now. Also, we're going on again, next week, and this will be our second time in like a month. So I think things are looking up for our group. But the point being is when I was talking with Top, he was we were talking like merch. He was like, I don't even know where to fucking start with your branding because, I mean, for one, me and Austin, we already had platforms when we met each other. Kind of like we were kind of a large-ish size already or larger, so it wasn't like it made sense to be like, oh, we'll just form under one. Looking back now, it's like
we were a power couple.
Yeah, we were a power couple. So it's like, what do we do? Do we consolidate everything under one brand? I forget the point, but anyways, the branding. The branding's awful. The format is all over the place. But anyways, I guess that kind of, I don't know, I had another point I forgot. But anyways, keep an eye out. There will be merch coming here soon and that'll be probably plugged on the Tinfoil Hat. So probably by the time the Tinfoil Hat episode comes out, we should be getting probably some sort of combination of No Way Jose, Underclass, Already Dead podcast merch, and it should be all in the same area. So, which is a nightmare. I guess we'll probably just call it Already Dead to make it less confusing. But sorry, Tyler, I'm rambling. This is usually what I do the first 5 minutes is rambling. So you interrupted my rambling, and then I get a little more concise and we get into topics.
Do you want me to go back in the green room?
No, it's good. It's good. Hey, this is what we have. I
want to say, Austin, you shouted out his show on Twitter the other day. So I started listening to it, the 4-hour McDonald. I didn't know anything about this. Great job. I'm like a quarter of the way through it. So people should go check that out.
Yeah, it's like a 4-hour fucking podcast. I was making fun of him for it. I've been making fun of him for it. Because he just kind of stopped showing up to these morning dumps for a long time and kept being like, I got to finish my podcast. And then he's like, the next thing I know, he's on the show on Tuesday. And he was telling me, like, I think this is going to be a 3-hour episode. Which anyone who knows Austin's content, the way his show kind of started was it would be like, he'd have like, this is why I actually really like his podcast. It's a great podcast to start from episode 1 and work your way up. Because his first episodes were like Zionism. And it'd be like 25 minutes. Or like 9/11. And it'd be like 30 minutes. It'd be like Oklahoma City bombing, 40-minute podcast. So pretty concise, and then like kind of basic conspiracy stuff, kind of like, working the building blocks. And the next thing you know, he's doing 4-hour podcasts on a 50-plus-year-old, group of murderers. So this is how his, but it's cool seeing the progression from there to there. But yes, that was quite the dive. He has quite the case of autism. But yeah, but that's why I do want to back up. I do want to remind you guys we have timestamps. So if you guys don't like this rambling content, you can just pop into where we actually get stories and follow along. But real quick, I do want to remind you guys before I got to pay the bills. Tyler popped in before we paid the bills. I do want to remind you guys that today's episode is brought to you by Nadeau Shave Co. If you're tired of that razor burn irritation, those ingrown hairs that come from those deep penetrating multi-blade cartridges, then this is the way to go. You can go back to traditional shave. You can shave just like your grandpa used to. Whether you're shaving your whole face or edging up your beard, the single blades give you a barber-grade shave for a fraction of the price. Now, the standard issue comes with one traditional safety razor and a box of 100 stainless steel razor blades. That puts you out about $75, and the estimate is that it's going to last you a year. Let's be real, it'll probably last you a lot longer unless you're someone shaving on the reg or almost regularly. If that's the case, you may want to consider the Quarter Shave Club. That puts you out about 25 cents per replacement blade. It's also a COVID mandate refusing company. So to recap, this is a superior shaving product. It's going to give you a smoother shave. It's better for your skin. It's a cheaper product. It's from a product from a company that doesn't hate your guts. And on top of all that, you can use code Jose for 10% off your entire order. And with that, let's get back into it. What's up, Tyler? Let's get into some content. You ready to do some shit? I have quite a few tabs for us. This show is basically just like all the stuff that I don't really have time to dig into Twitter. I bookmark and we dig into it here. We usually, as of late, we've been kind of starting with anti-war stuff. Starting off, we have Israeli army dropping leaflets on Gaza threatening existence of Palestinians. Surprise, surprise. This is from Middle East Eye, real short. I'm going to read this real quick, and we'll give some commentary. Israeli forces are dropping leaflets across Gaza in an attempt to spread fear and intimidation among the civilian population and cause psychological issues or distress. The messages are direct threats of mass displacement and Trump's plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Key messages in the leaflets. The implementation of Trump's expulsion plan, which will force you to be forcibly displaced whether you like it or not, which that was in quotes, if I didn't make that clear enough. In quotes, the map of the world will not change if all the people of Gaza disappear from existence, and no one will ask about you. Holy fuck. All right, also in quotes, neither America nor Europe care about Gaza at all, nor even your Arab countries, which are our allies now and provide us with money, oil, and weapons, and they send you shrouds. That was in quotes as well. And then this is not in quotes. Promises of aid in exchange for collaboration and effort to sow division amongst the population. Any thoughts on this, Tyler? This is, I don't know if you've been following the ins and outs of the Gaza peace deal lately. That has been the talk lately. We have this peace deal going on, but Trump's got this revolutionary plan where we're going to supposedly take over Gaza and somehow we're going to help them move, which is essentially the same exact thing that was the issue before, but people keep acting like it's some sort of revolutionary difference. And now they're attaching our name. They're sending leaflets, the Israeli forces, with our name attached to it, saying all this horrible shit. So any thoughts on that? I just think it's particularly wild that they would the gall to which he throws this idea out here. And then they just immediately all run with it and throw everything under Trump's name. Yep, this is Trump's idea. Trump this, Trump that, which he kind of is. But it's just kind of wild that now they get to rebrand this as the Trump expulsion. And then now this is, our name will be attached to this, to whatever goes forward. So I don't know. Any thoughts? I just, that kind of a, touching base on what's going on with all the ins and outs of the Gaza stuff.
Well, I when you read that off, I heard it in Ben Shapiro's voice, kind of like as if they had just printed out his tweets and threw.
The map of the world will not change if all the people of Gaza disappear from existence, and no one will ask about you. There you go. Exactly.
And then this is just a perfect example of them being able to use the U.S. and Trump as cover for everything now. Now it's it's like anything else they do, which is, and by the way, I've followed this along somewhat, and I don't know, like now there's the thing where they're giving hostages back, these babies are killed, or the bombs in Israel, and all of it, I just take it as they're each doing propaganda on both sides.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And so I haven't done these deep dives like some people I know, the Gray Zone really went into like the burnt babies and stuff, which is very important, but it's hard for me to know all the propaganda that comes from both sides here. So this is, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think Trump's, Gaza plans are awful, and they're just, it's just giving justification to basically genocide these people out to the winds of everywhere. And we don't know. And it's going to be a different thing. And will I go visit there if it's a nice golf course? I don't know.
Probably not. What's up, Elliot? See you joining the chat. All right, let's move on to the next. We got 2 more anti-war stories, and then we'll get through these real quick. Both of them are, all 3 are, I think, are Gaza related, just to let you guys know. Report, Netanyahu adds new demands in talks on second phase of Gaza deal. This is from Dave DeCamp. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has added several new demands amid negotiations for the second of the Gaza hostage and ceasefire deal, Israel's Channel 13 has reported. So at the very least, I will just start. I mean, they put off for weeks. I think it was almost a month they were overdue they were supposed to start negotiations for the second phase. So, I mean, just the idea that we're having them, that's good. The report said Netanyahu is demanding Hamas's leadership be exiled. That's not good because that's a completely unrealistic ask for Gaza to be demilitarized and for Israel to continue maintaining security control of the Strip, which would mean a continued Israeli military occupation or blockade. None of these are going to be accepted. Obviously, Hamas has rejected Israeli calls for the group to be disarmed, and its main demand has been for an Israeli withdrawal, meaning it would be unlikely to agree to an arrangement that keeps Israeli troops in Gaza. On Wednesday, Hamas offered to release all remaining Israeli hostages, which this is a story, as I mentioned when we talked about this yesterday, I think this is one you guys need to remember because while it doesn't feel great when you have to do it, but we've already had multiple examples between Gaza with this initial ceasefire deal and with Ukraine with the kind of talks about, peace there, where there were previous iterations where they basically got everything they wanted, and they, later after the fact, and they didn't take it then, and then later, then they had, so then everyone gets to go, why didn't you take the deal back then? The best we may, there's likely this could fall apart, and then we get to go, you could have had this before. So I think it's worth reminding yourself, or reminding the world that Hamas has already offered to release all the hostages in exchange for just stopping the ceasefire, and that's it. So they would get all their hostages, and hostilities would stop, and theoretically, basically be in a similar situation we are now. So I think it's worthwhile because who knows where this will go later, and they'll try later to be like, oh, they didn't give us our hostages or this or that, and we'll be able to point to like, hey, you could have got all your hostages back before, you didn't go for it. So Steve Witkoff, President Trump's envoy for the Middle East, acknowledged on Thursday that it would be difficult for the second phase of the ceasefire to be implemented, but said it was a possibility, which just isn't good because just like I think it was days or a week ago, he was saying, oh, it's totally going to happen. And that was kind of all we had to assure us it would. The issue with phase 2 is that there's supposed to be an end to the war, and the Israelis have a red line that Hamas cannot be in government, Witkoff said. It's hard to square that circle, but we're making a lot of progress in that conversation, and hopefully it leads to good things and good results. Witkoff also defended Trump's calls for the U.S. to take over Gaza, which would require an ethnic cleansing campaign, as Palestinians don't want to leave despite the massive destruction caused by the U.S.-backed Israeli. All right, I think that's all. I'm not going to read the rest of that article, but either way, you kind of get an idea. It seems like we're still getting essentially bad faith type stuff there. That doesn't seem to be anything that they're going to work with, but who knows? Maybe we'll see. So I don't know. There's not much to work with for conversation-wise there, Tyler, but if you have anything you want to, feel free. I usually breeze through these at the beginning because it is just kind of tit for tat, keeping an eye on what's going on, but so far as actual substantive conversation, it's hard to tell. I mean, keeping an eye on the nitnoid details of the ceasefire deals, it's every day it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I don't know. Any thoughts, Tyler, before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, real quick. Which is if you remember when October 7th happened, there was a lot of Max Blumenthal, Dave Smith. They talked about the reasons for this happening, and it was likely to set about another hostage exchange. Right? You do this. And it had worked a bunch in the past. And then Israel came out, and instead of working that, they just obliterated him. Now they're to the point where they've obliterated him. So, I mean, at what point does Israel need to negotiate because they're, the ICC or whatever already is convicted Netanyahu? I mean, it doesn't get any worse. So I don't know that they are worried about the public image anymore. So this is the place you're at. And, I hope it gets resolved out. But as you're saying here, I think Hamas actually has a track record of releasing hostages for getting this done. So this sounds about right.
Yeah, and they've actually, surprisingly, I see Tim Tuttle in the chat saying they're upping their baby atrocity propaganda, which isn't a good sign. Which, I mean, to your point about how they're returning hostages, being honestly, typically, I mean, for those of us who actually pay attention to the ins and outs, the daily this and that, so far as hostage stuff goes, everything I've always seen is it's kind of an inversion of what most people would probably think, where it's like, oh, Hamas probably getting back their prisoners and they're probably in great shape because it's Israel. They're a first world country. They're civilized people, whatever. And it's Hamas that when they give back their people to Israel, they're probably in awful shape or dead or whatever. I mean, some of them obviously have been dead, but I think there's things that heavily imply those people may have been killed as a result of Israel's actions, as opposed to, I mean, I guess technically you could say Hamas, since had they not, kidnapped them. But, I mean, if you kidnap someone and someone blows up the entire building, it's like, well, it's kind of like, it's kind of, I guess, on both of you there. So that's kind of the situation we're dealing with. But on the baby atrocity side, I know there is a kind of contention. And there was an article, I didn't bring it up because I did figure that was a lot to dig into. And maybe if you guys see any threads out there or anything, or that you want to, or maybe I'll just find an article. We'll probably dig into that sometime soon. I've seen a little bit of a hullabaloo about that, where they are leaning heavy into the baby atrocity propaganda. I guess there were, as a child or two that was returned recently dead. And I think there was questions about, I mean, it sounds like maybe you know more about this than I do. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, if you know, I know they're kind of claiming it's due to Hamas atrocities. I don't know what the counterclaim is. I feel like it's probably something along the lines of like, well, I kind of struggle to believe Hamas is just offing Israeli babies, but I mean I could be wrong. Even if there was an anecdotal example, that doesn't really, So, anyways, you know anything about this or not particularly? I haven't really dug into it.
Well, yes, and real quick. So Dave Smith was on Piers Morgan, and he had mentioned no babies were murdered or whatever on this day. So
by the way, did you adjust your mic? You sound louder, and someone said your mic was loud.
I adjusted it louder. Cool. Is it okay now? Is it too loud?
Sounds good to me, but you let us know, audience. I didn't notice it to begin with, but you do sound
I didn't
louder,
either. So. I saw that thing, so I adjusted a little louder. But I mean, who knows? I don't want to. It's all about you, Jose. So you tell me what sounds good.
I mean, it didn't bother me. So
okay. So Dave goes in there, makes this comment, and then everyone's blowing up. They're once again the burned babies, all this stuff. But then these two children got released. And I guess they were dead. So then, of course, it's like hostages released. They're dead. Hamas killed them. Could be, or it could be all the bombing campaign that went on. You talk about it, we watch movies and it's a hostage situation and there's a hostage negotiator, and the bad FBI guy, it's always the one that just wants to go roughshod into there, and everyone's like, that's horrible, except when it comes to Gaza. Let's all do that. It's perfectly fine. So these kids are killed, I guess, or returned back. We don't know the situation, but it always goes back to, if you had dead babies, now you're justified in being an animal to them, right? Because otherwise, it's Israel's they're so holy and wonderful about how they treat hostages, and we got these animals on the other side. So the only way to deal with animals is by treating them like animals, and it's a bad argument, and it's not really true, and it's propaganda. So I don't know. I don't know what the true story is with these children.
Yeah. Tuttle's saying it's the Bibas family. They're claiming Hamas beat the family to death when the father a year ago said they died in an Israel airstrike.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, the latter sounds far more likely to me. The first sounds like a little ridiculous, but I mean, sure, maybe it did happen. They are terrorists. I'm not saying they're great guys. I mean, these are it's still a group that broke into some place and murdered a bunch of people. The only thing is I think they were probably following along with some sort of level of rules that they had in their head. Maybe not exactly that in coordination with what we would consider laws of war, but from my understanding of what happened October 7th, it looked like it pretty much was mostly, I do think they did take out civilians, but then I think they also took out a lot of soldiers. It's also a little bit like kind of a blurry area because you have settlers which is kind of a gray area of what you consider, someone infringing. You also you're in a country where everyone's required to join the military, so that's weird too. So it's like, I mean, even with the people that join the military, it's kind of a gray area because it's like they were forced into this. It's all around just not good in the government on both sides. Whether it's Hamas or Israel is kind of to blame here. So
can you read Marks, and then it goes with Tim Tuttle's too. So Marks, I think he doesn't mean Gaza. I think he means like outside of Gaza, the attack. I'm hoping that's what he's talking about. And then it goes along with what Tim Tuttle's saying there, the Hannibal directive.
Yeah, he said, where's all this footage from this alleged mass murdering in Gaza? I'm assuming you mean October 7th. All I saw was fake videos when the thing first kicked off. If you are referring to literally Gaza, like the actual bombing campaign by Israel, I don't know where you're talking about fake videos. I'm sure maybe there were some anecdotal examples, but there were so many fucking videos. We were getting flooded with them for a long period of time. It was depressing to open Twitter. Now we don't get those photos as much. So, I'm assuming you mean October 7th, though. I don't remember any fake videos from that either, although I remember fake claims. Like we saw or pictures that were kind of framed incorrectly. Like you saw the famous photos of the shitload of cars that were parked there for the festival and just looked like they got blown the fuck away by like probably some sort of incredibly heavy machine,
no,
heavy
it's a guy
artillery
in ultralight with a machine gun, right? So.
Yeah, some guy with an Uzi. Like, okay. Or not like a fucking helicopter. Just
yeah.
That's looked like it would look like it more. It was. It looked like the Hannibal directive definitely was kicked off. There's even weirdness where extra bodies showed up, which it gets even more. I've covered that in the show where there's some weirdness of the body count, which it seems to imply it's a possibility. I mean, I guess maybe there's some weird number, something came out, but honestly, it looks like people may have brought dead bodies after the fact too.
That's what I take to a concert, dead bodies.
Yeah, I mean, you just keep a few, a few dozen in the truck to soup up the numbers after the fact, I know, bizarre. Are we still believing the Arabs in sandals flew into the Iron Dome with hang gliders? Yeah, I mean, that's still wild. I mean, I don't know. This is one that, dude, it could come out that it was such. It's just when you're dealing with Israel, and there's very much we already kind of got into it when it came into like atrocity stuff. It's literally such an inversion whenever you're talking about Israel. It always is so much of like these claims you hear from the big public people, the establishment faces, and you hear these awful atrocities, and then when you look into it, it's almost 9 times out of 10 a complete inversion of the way it was presented to you, to where you're like, oh my God, this is awful. Look at say for this Bibis example, this kid, you're like, oh my God, look. Then you start looking into it and you find about a Hannibal directive. You find about the incredibly awful treatment of the Palestinian prisoners, the awful like rape, that was like, it's literally worse. Like an example I brought up before is this like baby in an oven example that gets thrown along where they talk about, there's always this claim thrown around that like Palestinians like want to throw Jews in ovens and stuff. And it's like, well, this is literally an example of like, I believe the original example where that came from was actually a Jewish person throwing a Palestinian into an oven. Like it was a Palestinian child with like the father there. I mean, whether it's true or not I don't know. But the point being is it's so often an inversion. So I know my point in relating that to the Iron Dome example, it's like even if we do get like hardcore thing, we're going to be gaslit so hard by every Zionist, even slightly related influencer that's like nope. That's propaganda. That's bullshit. Well, it could be so clear, and I don't know. My point being is it's kind of a lost cause looking at that as a false flag. Although, dude, man, does it not look like a false flag? It sure as fuck does.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did a series with Pete Quinones on Leo Frank, which is a murder back in 1913. I'm not going to go
good example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, which is, look, this is a really bad guy. Everyone knew it, but they're trying to recreate the history of this because you can't have one prominent Jewish because a lot of things came out of this. So anyway, I don't need to go back and do that. But
yeah, Tim Tuttle, the Nikba, an Arab bakery. They threw a dad's son in an oven. Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was trying to say the Nakba. Okay,
no, I don't know what Nikba. I'm assuming that means what an Arab bakery is. Just the term for it. I don't know, or maybe I don't know. Whatever. All right, let's get into the last one here. Hamas frees 6 captives as Israel delays release of 620 Palestinian prisoners. So once again, it's so over. I'm sure tomorrow we'll be back in We're So Back territory. But I just gave you that last one. Kind of some of the offers Netanyahu has put on the table don't seem like realistic offers. You see Hamas, who released 6 captives, which I remember that was like a good story a few days ago. They're like, hey, we're upping our captives. It was kind of a show of good faith. I think it was also Israel's return was supposed to let through more mobile homes and heavy machinery for reconstruction in his kind of return. So it was kind of cool to see this, kind of working together in a positive way, win-win, and looks like now we're back in the it's so over territory. So Hamas has released 6 Israelis held in Gaza in exchange for more than 600 Palestinian prisoners set to be freed from Israeli jails on Saturday. So I guess also they were supposed to be getting the 600. So this makes this situation even shittier. So now they're not following through on their side of this agreement. Captives were released on the 35th day of the ongoing ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, marking the 7th such exchange. Hamas released the 6 Israelis in 3 different locations across the Gaza Strip. Avera Mengistu, who has been detained in Gaza since 2014, and Tal Shoham were released in Rafah, while Omer Shemtov, Aliha Cohen, and Omar Wankert were handed over to the Red Cross in Nusayrat refugee camp. Hisham al-Sayad, detained since 2015, was released without a public ceremony in Gaza City. A source from Hamas's wing, the Qassam Brigades, said the decision to release Sayed, a Palestinian citizen of Israel, without a ceremony was made out of respect for his Palestinian family. In exchange, Israeli authorities are set to release 620 Palestinian prisoners, including 150 serving long or life sentences and 445 taken from the Gaza Strip during Israel's latest invasion. The first 42-day phase of the ceasefire agreement and prisoner exchange deal began on 19 January. The second and third phases are contingent on the completion of the current one. However, Israel has delayed talks of the second phase, which was scheduled to begin on 3 February, so like almost 20 days ago, leaving the future of the ceasefire uncertain. Hamas has stated its readiness to release all remaining Israel captives on a single batch during the second phase of the government, scheduled to start on 2 March. In return, the Palestinian group asked for an official end of the war, the complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza, and the release of all Palestinian prisoners. Saturday's exchange is the latest one scheduled in the first stage involving living captives. Hamas is set to release the bodies of 4 deceased captives from Gaza next week. With the first phase of exchanges concluded, an estimated 10,000 Palestinian prisoners or more remain in Israeli custody, including dozens of bodies taken by Israeli forces. That's kind of wild. I mean, that's 10,000 Palestinian prisoners. So keep that in mind, considering one of the main issues here is the hostages of Israel, which I believe were like less than 100. So in Gaza, 59 Israeli captives. Here we go. Israeli captives remain in Hamas's custody. Half of them are believed to be dead, according to Israeli estimates. All right. Didn't it say they were delays release? I missed that in the article. I missed the delay. Okay. It literally was the headline, and I didn't see anything about the delay because that was the core thing here. Well, I guess we'll take their word for it that there's a delay, even though they didn't say anything about it within the body of it. That's fucking bizarre. Okay. I was waiting for some information about the delay because that's obviously the important thing there. Otherwise, without the delay, it looks like kind of business as usual. So, I don't know. Any thoughts on that? I guess we'll just kind of take assumption that the delay is happening. I don't know.
How many Israelis were taken captive, hostage on October 6th? Do you know?
Ooh, I don't know. I'll Google that real quick. Let's see.
And then they said
October
they've released some. There's 59 left. Half of them possibly. I mean, you got to give. They've at least tried to not have them all die, right? So they're doing something with these hostages because they want some leverage where their own people are being slaughtered.
Sorry, 251.
No, 250.
Yeah, so they've got around roughly almost 200 of them. So
okay,
yeah.
And how many have been released? So they have 59 left.
Yeah, they have 59 left. Now, it might get a little bit weird because I don't know if they were talking living dead. So it sounds like, they've gotten 80% of their prisoners back. So
yeah, they did some work about keeping them alive. And, it's funny when you start talking about stuff like this and then deaths. the Zionist ones. They're like, oh, whoa, you can't. It's almost anti-Semitic to start using numbers. But then they love to do the business of the proportional deaths compared to, this is within the structure of war, which is just fine. And I don't buy it all. I mean, I'm all about, let's do all the numbers. Let's get the numbers precise everywhere.
Which, if we're going to play the numbers game, then we should also play the numbers game within Gaza too, right?
Yeah,
like the percentage.
exactly.
I mean, hell, we just looked at the 10,000 some odd prisoners to their however many hostages. A prisoner is really no different. The only difference between a hostage and a prisoner is just the framing of the thing. Like, sure, all the people in prison are hostages currently, even in America. I mean, you might agree with them being a hostage, but they're a hostage. And they may not be a hostage without terms. Like, it's like there's no way to get them back, but they're being held hostage essentially by the government. Whether they're going to be released or not, it's a different story. So I don't know. I just think that's worthwhile mentioning, especially it's pretty. It seems to be. I don't know to what the degree this is true. It seems to be like the degree of legal rights a Palestinian has in not being arrested is pretty fucking slim. So, from my understanding.
Right. So I've done a little bit of, because I want to do a breakdown of the legal aspects of Israel and all that. So, and I've got some of it down already, so that's why I'm questioning where this 10,000 hostages are. Is it because, if you are born in Israel, and then you adhere to all the Israeli, like I'm an Israeli, you deserve
so you're
to have
Palestinian. Do you count as that stat as a prisoner?
You can count it that you still don't have all the rights like property and whatnot. So what is this? Are these people that are arrested? Do they have any rights? Or is it just, like, hey, I was walking over this. I was
juicing the numbers.
Yeah. So
because we hear that 10,000, and I feel like, and myself included. I mean, I try to remind myself. You kind of almost feel like you're like, oh shit, like 10,000. You just kind of like your assumption is that like these people are being held like for awful reasons, and you're like, I don't know that about all of them. I mean, that's my bias showing. Although I will say my bias is an educated bias. After digging, like, yeah, I'll admit, like when I hear these things, I filter them through usually the assumption that Israel's probably the bad guy here, but that comes from looking through these stories enough and seeing this pattern. It's an educated bias. It's like it's kind of like a, hey, after a certain period of time, you realize like, oh, it's smart. If anything, I lean towards the other way. So that's where I am with that. Tim said there's a video of this hostage exchange where the dude is very happy. Friendly's happy. He says, but they'll say that he was drugged or Stockholm, which is probably possible. They can't drug test him. Elonzo saying Jew Detective always finds the guilty Goyim and the Goyim guilty. I think that was a play off of True Detective from earlier.
Yeah. Back to the hostages. So part of that is if you're not a full citizen and they just pick you up and you don't have rights, you could be not in Gaza, not necessarily in the West Bank or somewhere in that area, and they pick you up and they just don't do anything with you. They're basically like ours, Guantanamo type, right? Not giving you due process. I think that could be considered a hostage, right? At some point. So that could be what that 10,000, which seems completely rational to have that number high for that. And I'm not saying it's
still very much a different thing than like a prisoner of war.
Well, yeah, but at what point you're like, okay, look, I'm an enemy combatant, or I don't know how they're categorizing these people.
Yeah,
I just think that there's a lot of nefariousness on the Israeli side.
Oh, 100%. All right, let's get into the next story today. Kash Patel has been confirmed. What was this, the 20th? I know I'm late on this one, but we didn't do one of these yesterday, so that was on Thursday. I don't particularly have any thoughts. I mean, he seems okay. I'd say like I'm somewhere so far as excitement for this Pajit, I'm somewhere between Tulsi and RFK. RFK and Tulsi. That makes more sense to say it that way, because RFK, you guys who follow my show know I'm not super excited about RFK, but I think it's a good thing. Whereas Tulsi, I was weirdly more excited for, and both of which I'm fully aware of their downfalls where they do glow a little bit. They're a little spooky. Maybe they're not on our team in certain areas, or maybe even altogether. I don't know, but they do seem to be a slight improvement. Now I've explained to you my reasoning why I'm more bullish on Tulsi than I am RFK. Most to do with RFK's cuckishness on Israel, which. Right. It gets a little bit confusing because Kash and Tulsi both are as well, but RFK came into the political scene at a time where it would have been to his advantage not to be, and he was more able to, like he was kind of running a campaign of the people. It made more sense. Kash and Tulsi have both been political operatives for a while, so I give them a little bit more slack when it comes to cucking for Israel. They come from the time where it really, really was like, it was not popular amongst the people, nor was it like a way you were ever going to get elected, among the power players if you had any sort of objections to Israel. Now I think you can kind of make some inroads amongst the public. The power players are still hesitant, but I do think we're at a time where the winds are shifting. So I think smart politicians will probably seat themselves ahead of this. So anyways, that's my reasoning why, kind of where I am on bullishness on him, but I don't know enough about him. I know he was a political operative that was good on a lot of the Russia stuff, I think, back in the day. He seems to be fairly close to a lot of our perspectives. But I don't know. Any thoughts on him? Do you have any insights, particularly on Kash? I know he's super pro-Israel. I mean, we see Tim saying Kash is going to expel the Iranian-occupied government and shit on the streets, and our government isn't occupied by Iran. Yeah, so I don't know if have you followed him much? Do you have any thoughts? Where are you? How bullish are you on Kash?
I saw him on Tim Pool and kind of followed some of that, and he reminded me. I think he's a good guy. But he reminded me a lot of your typical Charlie Kirk boomer types. I mean, they can be good on some aspects, but it's all just so, here's my team and I'm just going forward and Trump can do no wrong. And so you kind of just like a little bit, but I think he's a smart guy. I did have a problem. Clint put up a post with Patel and he's up there at the press conference. Yeah.
Like this?
Right. And he's at the press conference and he's
one of ours.
Right. And Kash is going, look, I'm the FBI director. You come at me, but all the FBI agents, you don't touch them. And I'm like, well, and Clint's all excited about this. He's going to make change. And I'm like, whoa. These FBI agents have been pieces of shit for years. Yes, it comes from the top, but you also have these ones that have been just doing horrible things. Why does Clint think that is some reason that particular clip was what he wanted to hold up as I don't know. It seemed weird to me.
I don't know. I've heard Clint say multiple times in his show, and I love Clint. I'm just giving him crap. I mean, I tease him. I think he's a little bit more. I don't know. Comes off as naive. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe he's just too happy about it. I have no idea. It's also hard because Clint is like in a different stratosphere than us, so far as like the people he's interacting with. So it's like,
I mean, personally, we're ahead of him, but politically, he's in a different stratosphere.
Yeah, personally, politically, yeah, exactly. He's dealing with the big dogs.
We have wives and kids.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those matter far more. But like, oh, cool, I've talked to some Pajit and fucking, I think he's one of us or something. Right. But I don't know. I hang out with my kid today and played soccer. Right. Who's winning? I love you, Clint. That's just teasing. But you should have kids and a wife and a family and stuff.
By the way, this thought was like, because there was one time, I don't know if it was the post show. He's asking me specifically, Tyler, what do I need to do to make my podcast, Because you review these. And I'm like, you need to get married. I'm like, you want to be Dave Smith? Dave Smith has gone up since he got married and has kids. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Anyway. Sorry,
you can only play the, like, I'm the cool bachelor for so long. He's running that, he's running that shtickle out.
Well, wasn't it Wedding Crashers? At some point, Will Ferrell's like not cool anymore. He's hanging out with mom, getting his meatloaf, and he's like 40. So,
but I will say, at his current phase, he's actually not bad because he's kind of like running and gunning. He's moving through social circles, and not in like a shifty, gross way, and just like but he's just moving. It makes sense. He's a single guy, so I mean, part of it is dating or flirting with these girls, or just meeting that friend. And something about having a family does restrict you a little bit like that. So, but it is almost like I do, there will be like a turning point to where, like, I think at some point it's like, it'll be to his advantage to be married in this game. But right now, I mean, maybe now would be the crux turning point. But I do think being single did help him a lot too. Because I mean, you even pointed out yourself, that's like, I'm not running or going to all these events and hanging out with these people because like I have better shit to do. I have like, I'd rather go to my daughter's soccer game or watch my other daughter wrestle or whatever, like. Yeah, but I got shit to do.
If he was married and he had stuff to do, would he be debating destiny?
Exactly. So I think now is the time, and but I don't know, maybe 5 years from now, he definitely needs to start pumping and dumping.
I love Clint. We hassle him, but that's what we do. Anyway, so Kash Patel. Yeah. I mean,
but anyways, my point being is he sees it from a different perspective. Yeah. He knows these people. It's kind of like I've said, even say somebody like RFK. Dave says glowing stuff about him, but Dave also has I don't know if I'd say necessarily. If I had to guess Dave's relationship with RFK, it's probably somewhat close to my relationship with Dave, is to where the extent of like he's somewhere between acquaintance and friend. They're friendly, they're acquaintances. I mean, they're not quite acquaintances, so they probably don't know each other super well. But that's kind of enough to get a vibe for someone. Yeah. But I don't have that vibe. I don't have that advantage that Dave has when it comes to somebody like RFK. So I have to look at this dude and go, I don't know. This dude has some. I don't have that personal experience to base off. Clinton has this with a lot of these people, so maybe. But at the end of the day, I'm going off the information I have. So this guy seems okay at best.
Did you have? I respected Dave when he went at RFK on his show over the Israel thing, and I thought that was pretty big because he's much more in the pocket with RFK than Clint is with some of these people, right?
Yeah.
And so to kind of push back was good because I mean. Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, yeah, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, and there is something too. I think the people that know them, and it makes it a little bit different. You know, Clint knows these guys because we're teasing him, but he's mentioned his show multiple times about how he likes Kash, this, that. But honestly, frankly, and if you're watching this, Clint, on the off chance you do, maybe this is a suggestion. All the times you've provided the reasons, provide an example, or not. Every time you mention him, provide a reason. Because I haven't really gotten much good. I've listened to every single episode of his, but I don't think I've really gotten a really good reason. You know, I mean, I think I've heard a little bit on the show about how he was good on some of the 2016 stuff, sort of. But I don't really understand why we should really care too much, other than he seems slightly better than the rest. So that's cool. Right. Yeah, I don't know. So I mean, go ahead.
By the way, I love the way that you're saying that. So I always talk about this on legal stuff, which is declarative statements. Someone will just make a statement like, Kash is great. It's like, well, just the really easy way to just say the word because and then finish that sentence.
Yeah.
And see, if you can do that, now you're starting to fill it in with some facts as to why he's good. And that's exactly what you're asking for. And I think this is why I like your show stuff. Yeah. Because you push back, you're skeptical, and you want answers to stuff. So
yeah, no, I like to see people like this, and I'm going to go on a thread. For example, I don't know if we'll get to it today. I literally have, hell, I'll even show you a little preview. There was this huge thread about Milo Yiannopoulos. About digging into some old stuff in him, and I kind of wanted to cover it. There's some Fed accusations, pedo stuff. So I wanted, and I kind of have I tend to actually, my knee-jerk reaction, I tend to like. Oh, actually, I thought I brought it up. I'm retarded. It was in the back. It wasn't up. But I was just showing you guys that I have this tab about this. Maybe we'll get into it. But my point being is, I don't know. I like to dig into this stuff. You know, whatever. This is a good chance to do so. I mean, even somebody like Milo, someone I knee-jerk kind of like, but I don't know. I'm open to the idea of any of these people being weird. So, I don't know. Being skeptical is important. All right, let's move on to the next story. This is
I'll do
CIA.
one more and then I'll take off and let you hang.
Oh, actually, well then shit. Well, one more after this. Cool. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because there's one more I really wanted to go through with you.
Okay.
And then
we'll hang out until you're done.
We'll kick you the fuck out. Well then, all right. Yeah. And there was a point I was going to kick you out anyways because I did want to do a long Dutroux reading, and that's weird with someone with me.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is a super quick one. CIA is reportedly planning its largest mass firing since 1977. This was also on the 20th, so this came out 2 days ago. So a little bit of old news. I haven't seen anything since then more about actual moves for firings from the CIA. This is another one I'll file under skeptical until it actually happens. But as I've grown common to saying, I don't know. I've been surprised lately, like with the USAID stuff and stuff like that. So maybe we will see. Obviously, the CIA will find ways to around this, whether that's create more public fronts and somehow leak the money out that way or whatever. I mean, but either way, hey, whatever. It's a move in the right direction. Any thoughts, Tyler?
Yes, real quick on that. So Doge is, I've always said this, the Republicans get in power and then they talk like, oh, we're going to cut government. And then there's, the $400 hammer, the $1,000 toilet seat, and they don't do anything about it. Doge is doing something about it, which I'm flabbergasted. And then Senator Paul goes and tries to do some bill to save 1.3 trillion, and it gets voted down by all the Republicans. So Congress at some point needs to do something. So this firing and all this executive stuff that I'm usually not a big fan of, when it's just slashing and burning, even Kash coming in and all these people kind of like mixing up these departments. I think it's great. It's like tilling the soil. You're gonna maybe it's gonna be bad, but I think when you get rid of people and you till it like that, it's going to be better for all of us personally. And so I would love to see them fire more CIA, FBI. The Pentagon's getting slashed out here, and the cries from the left on this are just astounding.
All right, perfect. Now as you said, you did want to leave. So this is a story I did was like, cool, Tyler's coming. We'll have him cover it. I'll let you know, I don't know, maybe one other one that you could give like real quick, give commentary on that's not deep dives aside from this. So I won't, if you do want to stick around for one more, because the other ones might be a little bit biting off more you can chew. But let's dig into this one. This was a little bit longer, but, this is one I wanted to bring you along for. Here's the New York Post. Sean Diddy's lawyer quits sex trafficking case. Under no circumstances can I continue, says the headline. Stupid fucking ads. Sorry, give me a second while I exhale these stupid fucking ads. Oh my God, Jesus Christ. All right, one of Diddy's, Sean Diddy Combs' defense lawyers quit the disgraced music producer's criminal sex trafficking case, new court papers show. Now once again, we see these clickbait articles. I even noticed this guy's face. He's different than the one. There was a article that went around a little while ago where like, oh my God, look, Luigi Mangione and Diddy have the same lawyer. And it was some other broad, or no, their lawyers were married or some shit.
It's this guy and his wife.
Is it this guy?
Well, I don't know if it's.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't recognize his face.
What's the name of this guy?
This guy is Anthony Rico.
That's not the guy that's stepping down.
Oh wait, never mind. I'm retarded. No, it's filing. No, this is the guy stepping down. Anthony Rico filed the motion. Is it showing it right? I have it up. Yep. Okay, cool. Because I'm looking at a different screen as I'm reading it. So, Anthony Rico filed a motion Thursday withdraw as one of the Bad Boy Records 6 defense attorneys. So see 6. So, I mean, this is like, whoa, his lawyer quit, but it's like, it's one of 6. So, I don't know. Not as big of a deal. But, I mean, either way, it's like, hey, one of them stepping away, and the reasoning might be interesting. Rico's bid to step down won't be official until a judge signs off on it. A judge must find sufficient reason to approve such a request, which is kind of wild. Under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel for Sean Combs, he wrote in the Manhattan federal court affidavit. It is respectfully but regrettably requested that the court grant the relief requested. The lawyer didn't elaborate on why he wanted to step down, but the noted decision came after speaking with Combs' lead counsel, Mark Agnifilo.
There you go. That's the husband to the wife. The wife is representing Angela.
So that's a lead counsel. So that little bit of the lead counsel, Mark Agnifilo. So that is actually a worthwhile little node of conspiracy info that those are married, because that is his lead one. Whereas this one's, I guess, kind of but it's one of his lesser ones. So
yeah.
Okay. The attorney suggested the cause for his affidavit's brevity is because he didn't want to divulge any information protected by attorney-client privilege. He told the judge there are sufficient reasons for asking to be let off the case. He assured the judge his resignation won't delay the trial, which is set for May 5th, since Combs will continue to be represented by 5 other attorneys of record. Combs has pled not guilty to charges he forced women into drugged-up sex shows. He's behind bars without bail since his September arrest. He faces a mandatory minimum of 15 behind bars and up to life imprisonment if convicted on the top charge. He faces at least 40 lawsuits by men and women who claim he drugged them and sexually assaulted or raped them. Oh man, I'm fucking racking them up. Any thoughts, since you are our resident Tower Gang lawyer?
Yeah.
Is this normal in the world, in the lawyerly world? Does this strike you as bizarre, or does this strike you as clickbait and maybe running too far with this and people should be?
It's a high profile case, so I don't know about clickbait, but there's reason if you really read his motion. For his reason to get to be released from the case. First of all, a client can fire you, you can be released, but if it's time, before trial for a certain amount, you have to get leave of the court. They have to be able to, you motion for leave to be released as his attorney. The judge's main thing is they don't want trial to be disrupted. So he's got all these other attorneys. That's not a problem. In his motion, he references. Now there's a few things. Let's say you're not getting paid, or let's say you just don't get along with this person and you don't really want to, explain this all to the judge. You just say attorney-client issues. He referenced, I think, the ABA rules of ethics, which there's each state has their rules of ethics, and then there's the ABA model rules for ethics, and some states have adopted the ABA. He mentioned this in there, and one of those big aspects that you can get taken off of a case or be relieved for under the ABA is that you are put in a position to have your client untruthfully testify. So your client's like, I'm going to lie about something, and then you're there's a conflict, and you can't go and do that. So there's thought that maybe this is the reason he's going there, or
which would make sense if it was followed up, if it was due to a conversation with the lead counsel, because it would be like, what could be drawn out from that? So it's not necessarily Sean admitting any wrongdoing, but it could be something as simple as the lead counsel saying, "Hey, this is the game plan for May 5th or whatever, and we're going to put Diddy on the on the stand, and he's going to lie about X, Y, and Z."
Yeah.
Like that could be. Which I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how this works with lawyers. Do you even be honest with them and lie? Like, let's say I killed someone. When I take in a lawyer, do I go, "Hey, all right, make sure we're a lawyer. You're my lawyer. Okay, cool. We got that signed. You can't tell me I killed someone and I don't want to go to jail for it." Are they technically, ethically supposed to turn that away, or like, how's that work?
Then if you're going to put him on the stand, you can't put him on the stand and know that they're going to lie. Okay.
So that would be an unethical, lawyerly thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And suborn perjury and whatnot. But sometimes that's why they just never testify in their own defense. Maybe they're not telling you, but it has to do with that kind of aspect. So it could be this for this guy, or they just he can reference the ABA. There's something wrong, and I don't want to disclose it. And then the judge is like, fine, be off.
All right, I have one more that I think you should probably stick around for, because it's not a big bite for you to bite into. This one, I figured it might be worthwhile for you to stick around, because I wanted to read the document they're saying. It says, I'll show the original. There's from Elon. "The world will be better for this." So this is Elon quote tweeting a tweet. It would have been not quite his typical wow, but hey. Here we go. Nick Sorter said, "Breaking: President Trump and Doge can now dismantle USAID. A federal judge has just ruled. The gravy train is over." Now, keep in mind, I'm already now, after digging this a little bit, because I just shared this because it grabbed my eye. I was like, whoa, okay, well, let's dig in this later. Already, just look at the wording. That's different. I mean, we're going to look at this to see what this supposed federal judge said. But even just the original, the headline, this is one that makes you think, when you quickly read it, you're like, oh, shit. And then when you read a little bit, you're like, Doge can now dismantle. So now they have the ability to. A federal judge has just ruled. So you see this and you think, oh, shit, they're going to dismantle Doge. Now it's sounding like more of a technicality somewhere saying you can't. Now here we go. Carl J. Nichols. Here's his conclusion. He says, "For the reasons explained above, the court concludes that plaintiffs have now demonstrated that they or their members will suffer irreparable injury absent an injunction, that their claims are likely to succeed on the merits, or that the balance of the hardships of the public interest strongly favors an injunction. The court will accordingly deny plaintiff's motion for a preliminary injunction, ECF number 9, and will dissolve its previously issued temporary restraining order, ECF number 15. An order will accompany this opinion." I'll be honest, I barely know what the fuck I just read there. That was a lot of legal language that I think I could kind of maybe guess. But date February 21st, this was yesterday, 2025. Any thoughts on that? Obviously, we're only looking at the conclusion here.
Yeah, you misspoke on one word, which makes a big deal, which is in the first sentence there. You said now demonstrated, but it's not demonstrated.
Oh, not demonstrated.
So
okay.
To get an injunction, you have to show irreparable harm is going to happen, a restraining order of some sort right now to take care of this on a temporary basis. And so they're saying you have not demonstrated that you're likely to win on the merits if this proceeds further, or that there's irreparable harm if we don't do something about this. Therefore, we're not going to, have this injunction. I don't know all the details of this. This is just the conclusion here, but it sounds like the plaintiffs were coming in suing Trump or Doge, saying you're going too far, you can't do this. And I think a judge had initially held that, and maybe they appealed it. And this is like saying, we're not going to go forward with this. I need to look into a lot of these. There's going to be a lot of legal cases going on with Doge. And you did a great job one morning reading about the Doge, of how it was set up. And by the way, this Nick Sorter guy that you took this tweet off of, he often puts clickbaity shit that's completely a lie or, wrong.
Yeah.
So,
technically, the one he did just now seems like it was true. But you dig into it, and it's like, okay, cool. So someone somewhere judged on some specific thing, this, that. Like, okay. I mean, I don't know.
The judge didn't say they could dismantle USAID. It just said, we're not going to put a stay on what you can do.
Okay. All right. So that's that. I guess I'll let you go, Tyler. I appreciate you joining. I'm sure you'll be back again some other time. But let's get a few more stories with you guys.
See ya.
I think, but we'll see you, bud. Appreciate you coming. All right, bye-bye. Yeah. Oh, see ya. All right, you guys can follow him on the Libertarian Podcast Review. It's on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers as well. Go check that out. Go give him a follow too. What is his Twitter? I'll tell you what his Twitter is real quick. Give me uno momento, por favor. Sorry, I'm just trying. At Tyler Yankee. And Yankee is with a J. Janke. Tyler Jank. That's it. That's the guy. Go give him a follow. He's the dude. All right, let's check in with you guys. I saw this earlier. I saw you. Someone says RFK's out of pocket, and then Pistolero said I like his song Ring of Fire. Then he said Walk the Line was good too. That I just wanted to throw that out. You made me laugh. I mean, you might even be able to see me chuckle. I chuckled at one point during the show, and that was completely during. Do you see me seeing that? I almost brought it up, but we were in conversation. All right, let's get into some other stories. I'm trying to debate. I'm trying to consolidate info. Fuck it. I have two. There was a Bring the Guard home episode thing I wanted to get into, and there also was a Milo Yiannopoulos thing that I mentioned to you guys. I think we're not going to get into that today. I think we'll save that for tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow. Pistolero says Tyler is a good guest. He is a good guest. He's good for these. He's great for these. Perfect for these. He said, I posted a pic of Johnny Cash when Cash was confirmed. See, even the Johnny Cash ties into that. Although you were clearly talking about RFK, the joke being his voice. I walk the line. Yeah, like kind of stupid RFK voice. All right. Man, I'm still torn whether I want to dig into the Milo thing. But I think that's a big, there's a lot to that thread. So I think maybe we'll save that for tomorrow. I mean, hell, that's an evergreen one we can save for later. The Defend the Guard one also. So let's just go straight to Dutroux stuff. I have two threads for you guys today anyways, on the Dutroux front. Let's start with this. Right, give me a second. Sorry, I'm just vamping really poorly. Here we go. Here's excerpt of a recent interview with ex-Belgian Gendarmerie Major Vernijen. Make sure I got this up correctly. Okay, cool. Here we go. Herman Vernijen hands us a document that he made himself, a colorful tree structure in which he makes innumerable links between criminal cases from the 1980s. Connections are everywhere. So this is an old, one of the old gendarmeries, a major, so someone who made it fairly high. I don't know exactly how their police structure is made, but generally in most military rank structures, major is E5 or O5, like an O5, yeah, something like that. So it's fairly high up there. I mean, it's a little right below lieutenant colonel, which is right below full bird. It's not like super high. You're mid-level. So I don't know, probably at a fairly good vantage point to give us some information. Probably nothing too crazy. Probably doesn't know the exact people and stuff, but he probably saw enough to go, something fucky's going on here. So this Herman Vernijen hands us a document he made and said, okay, I already read that. During that era, and let me make sure, no, this is in English. Nope, that's all in Belgian or French, one of the two, because I guess they use both there. Here's a picture of the gendarmerie, the old feller. During that era, this is him quoted, in Belgium, the Brabant killings were intertwined with drug trafficking, arms trafficking, but also with the enigmatic affair of the Pink Ballets, aka the dossier of Pignon, which we talked about before, which involves high-level officials participating in orgies where minors were involved. Here we go. So if you want to read more about Pignon and the Pink Ballets, which we have, that tags to that connects to that thread. According to him, the victims of the Brabant killers had key information about the Pink Ballets. A coincidence not for the man who became colonel in 1982 and who claims to have seen photos of these Pink Ballets. It shows his eyes as if to say that these two know. So here's pictures. Here's Michel Lirbert. Okay. Michel Lirbert is I don't know what this is from. Westland New Post member recalling being asked about the Pignon files / Pink Ballets by inspectors. Excerpt from an interview made by Jan Hervé in April 2017. Mr. Lirbert, have you seen the pictures? Yes, I saw the pictures. And who were in them? But I've already said it. At that time, Prince Albert, which is King Albert II of Belgium, naked, Vanden Boynance, naked, which Vanden Boynance was a guy we've mentioned multiple times. Okay, so this is interesting that Michel, I didn't know this specific. So I guess Michel Libert himself claims he saw Prince Albert, the King of Belgium, and Vanden Boynance at the Pink Ballet. So he's seen them at them. He's seen the pictures. Vanden Boynance is a guy who was a head of CPIC, which is super tied into all this Gladio shit. CPIC. They're also they made it wasn't Westland New Post, because Westland New Post sounds like it would be a publishing house or a publishing, like a newspaper publisher. It's not. That's actually the paramilitary group that ends up doing a lot of the Brabant killings. But now, God, was it the John? I forget I don't know. Whatever. They also had some fucking I forget the name of it. Some weird. I'm gonna think of it later. It's really bugging me. I can't think of the name of it. But either way, they also made like a newspaper publishing that kind of ties into some of the right wing Gladio type mentalities. It seemed like that was like where they were promoting some of that stuff. Kind of similar to like the Soldier of Fortune type stuff you see over in the United States, especially like in the 90s. So that's who Vanden Boynance is. So that's why that's important. It's crazy. It's kind of why it's significant seeing him here. Prince Albert, naked, and there were women and children. Here you go. Inspector grunts. But then why are you asking me the question? Do you have the pictures? No, I don't have the pictures. Mr. Libert, you don't have the pictures? You, the man who makes copies of everything? End of the recording. So I think that's kind of interesting, obviously implying he probably does have them. Herman Vernijen himself believes he was a victim of the Brabant killings, or at least people closely associated with him. On October 26, 1981, past midnight, Vernijen hears someone ringing the bells of his home. He barely gets the door, and then shots follow, 30 in total. Vernijen says he was targeted by corrupt gendarmes Bouhouche and Begier, and a third unknown assailant because he was working on a sensitive case, an international drug smuggling operation ran by gendarmes from the anti-drug squad, who had been trained by the DEA. Vernijen's wife, Magda, was critically injured in the attack, and she took years to recover. Feel free to check out the ALT text on some of the pictures in the thread. More details. Here's a full interview of him in French, which can be found here. So I thought I knew this was a short one, but I thought it was interesting to kind of show the perspective of somebody actually within this organization that we had shown to be kind of corrupt, or very corrupt during this period of time. So here's someone within that organization speaking out after the fact. Probably someone that I likely, if I had to guess, was not really into these things. I mean, they're definitely, we talked about, the Connerat, the presiding judge, that, has been kicked off multiple cases. I believe one of them was was the Augusta affair one, which was tied into some of those similar people, but he got kicked off that one. He got kicked off the Dutroux affair. So there clearly there are white hats in this organization. But I mean, no, to what degree do they make a difference for the entire organization? Clearly not. But there clearly are good people in this organization that, I don't know, for one reason or another, either speak out later or whatever, or maybe good might be the wrong way to put it. They weren't completely tied in to these networks. So, and then see some of these people talking out later. So, all right, let's pop in the chat, and then we will get into the last thread of the day, and we will get out of here. All right, man, you guys are quiet today, real quiet. Feel free to chime in, say some stuff. Also remind you guys that you guys can support the show by contributing on a Rumble rant, and I will read those. But you guys are really quiet today. But to be fair, I did this at the wrong time, so I'm not getting the usuals that show up and chitter chatter with us. All right, let's get into this one. I should have it up now. Here we go. Sorry, if I need to find the right one. Here we're getting into this. So it says Paul Latness and Westland New Post's involvement in the theft of NATO documents, WNP's possible links to Gladio/NATO through Alexander Haig. Which anyone who knows who Alexander Haig is, that's a pretty big one. So we're kind of connect the Westland New Post, which is that Gladio entity we talked about, and kind of connect it over to the U.S. So you guys can see how we're following the threads here, how we're making connections one thing to the other. It is kind of discombobulated and all over the place, but I hopefully you guys can see the dots that I'm laying down, and kind of the easily connectable lines from one to the other, and how they kind of are just interconnecting like a motherfucker. So, all right. Here we go. 1985, Paul Latnus's mom, Francine, declared to the Belgian Gendarmerie General, Belgian Gendarmerie, I'm sorry, I read that completely wrong. Paul Latnus's mom, Francine, declared to the Belgian Gendarmerie, and this is a colon, so this is what she's declaring. She says, General Haig, Alexander Haig, was the head of a group he worked for. I don't know if Paul actually met this general, but I know that he worked for his group and that he had a great admiration for him. So now this is Paul Latnus. For those, to recap, for those who don't recall who Paul Latnus is, he is the one who founded the Westland New Post, which is this paramilitary group that was essentially doing these Brabant killings and all sorts of seemed like almost like contract killings that were probably for Gladio, if not were Gladio. Now with this Paul Latnus guy, he has strong connections to the Surete, which is the intel thing, which is where this is. It looks like this was very much created. Now, I will say, for those who are inundated in the OKC bombing lore, I've been very much reeling as of late, kind of just noticing the parallels between like Westland New Post and like, I mean, maybe I'm just initially noting it. Maybe it'll go away once I dig in a little bit deeper. But noting the connections between Westland New Post and like things like Elohim City. You know, like what is going on here? Because yeah, anyways, the guy who created it, this Paul Latnus guy who started this group, he looks like he was heavily clicked into the Surete, which is a Belgian intelligence, and we're going to kind of get into some weird connections. So it doesn't look like this is organic. Who we're going to make a fascist, racist, whatever movement, right wing movement. I don't think it's simple as that. I think there might be a lot more to the creation of this entity than just here's this organic uprising of this movement, and here's an outcropping of it. No. All right, let's keep moving. Let's look through some of these documents, see if any of these are in English. No. So here's just documents. Says Latnus. Here we go. More. I mean, you see Haig mentioned, but I'm assuming obviously we can't read this as either in French or Belgian. So you see Madame Latnus. That's obviously Latnus's mom. Haig mentioned. So I'm assuming it's just her mentioning it in there. Here's a picture of Haig. Haig with Reagan. And for those who aren't aware, the significance of Haig or why he's such a big deal, I believe he ended up being one of the top dogs in NATO at one point, which directly tied into Gladio, basically is Gladio. And then also he played a big part in the kind of the shenanigans of Watergate. So yeah. All right. Pistolero says I'm driving. Oh, that's why you've been quiet. So, all right. Let's get back into this real quick. But yes, Haig is a major figure. When Paul alluded that he was working for the Americans, he meant it was General Haig. I also remember that he told me that if something happened to him one day, the Americans would publish the Pennon dossier abroad and in 5 countries, which the Pennon dossier, as we mentioned earlier, is the one that shows these, high-level people, supposedly, photos and stuff of them in precarious positions, in orgies that include children and likely sadism. At least sadism was included in the Dutroux stuff, so I don't know. Here's a little thing showing Alexander Haig's bio. If you feel like it's worthwhile to read it. General Alexander Meigs Haig was born December 2nd, 1924, and graduated from West Point in 1947. He then served in the Korean War from 1950 to 51 and was military assistant to the Secretary of the Army in 1964. He also served in Vietnam from 1966 to 1967. Haig was a military advisor to the National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger from 1969 to 1973, that's notable, and was on the staff of the National Security Council. He was eventually made a 4-star general in the U.S. Army and held the role of Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, commanding all NATO forces from 1974 to 1979. This dude was clearly clicked up in Gladio. Like, the fact that he would not be tied in, or in the know at least, of Gladio is a little bit unreasonable. President Ronald Reagan named Haig Secretary of State, and Haig held that position from the outset of the Reagan administration until his resignation in May 1982. He ran unsuccessfully against Vice President George Bush for the Republican nomination for president in 1988. So that's definitely an interesting pedigree. Here's another excerpt. A review of the central files of the FBI indicates that General Haig, in his position as assistant to the president, had telephonically requested that FBI Director Clarence Kelly institute a physical surveillance on the Watergate Special Prosecutor's Office. the office of Archibald Cox, giving the instructions that nothing leaves. He also requested the same surveillance be instituted on the offices of Attorney General Elliot L. Richardson and Deputy Attorney General William D. Ruckelshaus. The files indicate that General Haig telephonically instructed Director Kelly to discontinue the surveillance is approximately 15 hours after the first telephone calls from General Haig to Director Kelly. All right, that's kind of annoyed stuff about Watergate, but, shows, where he was at. Another excerpt, a 1947 graduate of the U.S. Military Academy and Korean War veteran, Haig took a job at the Pentagon during the Kennedy years. Following a tour of duty in Vietnam, Haig in 1969 was made aide to Henry Kissinger, President Nixon's national security advisor. Like his boss, Haig was a hawk at Vietnam, and during his time in the Nixon White House was intimately involved in U.S. plotting against Chile's elected president, Salvador Allende, overthrown in 1973 by General Augusto Pinochet with significant help from the CIA. So he probably had a large part in that, or he did have a large part in that. So long as the regime, however repressive, allied itself with the U.S.'s interest in the Cold War, Secretary of State Haig would embrace it, as so many of his predecessors had done. He supported the apartheid government in South Africa, pushed for military aid to the junta in Turkey, coddled the Suharto dictatorship in Indonesia, and was a staunch supporter of the Marcos kleptocracy in the Philippines. After right-wing government forces in El Salvador raped and murdered 4 American churchwomen, Haig responded by forming a White House committee investigating the atrocity that the vehicles the nuns were riding in may have tried to run a roadblock. Never mind that the women were found with bullets in the back of their heads 20 miles from the roadblock in question. All right, yeah, so glowy stuff on Haig. All right, let's keep moving. Who did Latinus work for, and how could it link to Haig? He claims that he had been recruited by the DIA at 17 in 1967, which I don't even know what the DIA is. Let's see if we can get a DIA. I don't know if is that one of our, I vaguely recall a DIA, but I doubt he came from America. DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, perhaps, which I believe that's one of ours. So maybe, what does DIA stand? It provides military intelligence to warfighters, defense policymakers, and force planners in the DoD and the intelligence community in support of U.S. military planning and operations and weapon systems acquisition. I mean, that does sound like something that would be very Gladio-ish. Although it sounds a little wild that Latinus from 17 would be working with the United States as a DIA agent. I mean, I'm looking into what DIA is in case it's like maybe I'm keeping in mind that the writer here I think is someone who speaks both Belgian or maybe French or French and English. So I don't know where this guy comes from. Maybe DIA is something different in Belgium. Let me try DIA Belgium, see if that makes a difference. I mean, it does sound like it would fit in with DIA from the United States, but I don't know. Yeah. No, nothing's coming up. Where is the DIA Europe? DIA Europe. I don't know. Yeah, unless there's something else. No, there's a DIA Europe as a health care conference in Europe. Okay, well, I think maybe it's the United States DIA or some other agency. I mean, they all have stupid acronyms, but either way. A classic mugshot from The Symptoms of Homer wearing a Haig for President shirt. Oh, cool. That's from Tyler. Okay, yeah, I guess maybe they're saying the RDIA. He also says that he was formed to surveillance and counterintelligence by a NATO officer in Belgium during his military service in 1973. But there's more. And he shared something, I can't read this. This is a different language. So I guess it says Latinus Agent Secret Americain. So I would think that would imply that, yeah, I mean, this is a DIA, the United States DIA. So, all right. So the claim is that, so Latinus himself claims that he was DIA from 17 in 1967. That's wild. Reminds me a lot about, Oswald, who was I believe, wasn't he in the, I don't know how old he was, but he must have been a teenager when he was, I don't think he was actually in David Ferrie's unit, or maybe he was, but either way, he was in the Civil Air Patrol, either in David Ferrie's unit or closely connected to David Ferrie's unit in the Civil Air Patrol. But point being is, either way, clearly that's where the spookiness began. So, but that's wild. I'm just saying there's kind of parallels there. And on the side of the NATO officer in Belgium, if he was working for DIA, that does sound like something that would easily tie into NATO missions. So then, ta-da, here we go. That's how you get from there to here. So from NATO to Gladio, from DIA to NATO to Gladio, and here we are. So, all right, that's interesting. That's an interesting little factoid. I wish this was in English here. In 1981, after the newspaper Pour makes it public that he is a Belgian intelligence asset, a fascist infiltrator in leftist groups protected by VDP's CEPIC, which VDB was the guy we talked about earlier who was pictured in those pink ballets, and CEPIC is the right-wing political movement that then also has, I believe it's like the Nouveau Déjeuner or something is the publishing, their newspaper publishing company or whatever. So they have that as well. So those are the ones to keep track of. He fled to Chile, helped by the CIA-backed DINA. His American handlers were the one who paid for this trip. Okay, so the claim is that he then fled to Chile and the Americans paid for it. Chile is a friendly area with us since we kind of helped, did so much stuff with them. These excerpts are all in English, or not in English, but in either French or Belgian as well, so we can't read those. Marie Therese de Sueves, a.k.a. Kika, an undercover DINA agent, which let's look up what DINA is. I'm kind of interested in what that one is. Whatever, we'll take a second to look at it. No, oops, DINA, boom, boom. DINA, until I'm going to look up an agency, because that didn't show up as DINA agency. Dirección de Inteligencia Nacional. The Secret Police of Chile. So that would make sense. Okay, so it's Chilean intelligence agency. Okay, so here we are, intelligence agency. So this broad works essentially as a Chilean intelligence agent. She worked at the Chilean embassy in Brussels, gave Latinus an address in Chile he could go to. She was friends with one of Pinochet's daughters, subscribed to Nouvelle Europe magazine, which I believe that Nouvelle is that one I was talking about before, and is a member of Opus Dei. Which is significant here. I believe it would almost seem like some of the stuff was like a Opus Dei verse. I mean, you could almost make the case some of the stuff was Opus Dei versus, or no, Opus Dei came in and cleaned up a lot of this stuff. There's some Opus Dei connections to be had here in the cleanup, and claims by some of the characters involved that Opus Dei did have a hand in covering this up. I've never really gone too much into that angle of it. Her father was a Chilean consul / ambassador to Belgium around the 70s, which, all right, back up, I mentioned Opus Dei, so I probably should mention a little bit more. For those who don't know what it is, I don't know a ton about it, but essentially it is, I guess you could almost call it like the Vatican's intelligence agency, or one of their many intelligence agencies is kind of one way to describe it. Kind of highfalutin elites with kind of an intelligence bend to some extent. Her father was a Chilean consul / ambassador to Belgium around the 70s, but for some reason his name is not mentioned anywhere, and I can't identify him. According to Latinus' mom, Kika gave her twin brother's address in Chile for Latinus to flee to, but there is a strange twist. The address Kika gave Latinus had belonged to a parent of her family, the Marquis George de Cuevas. George died in 1961, but the family still lived there and welcomed Latinus and his girlfriend for 5 weeks. George, close to Dolly, married Margaret Rockefeller Strong in 1935. I'm assuming that middle name is a family name. So here's a Rockefeller connection. So the house that Latinus lived in, I guess, was the house used to be the house of, I guess, a Rockefeller is what I would assume is what the implication is here. So that's interesting, something worthwhile. Also, there's like a Dolly connection there. George, the person's house I went to was a friend of Dolly, the artist. So that's interesting. That's weird. All right, back to Latinus. According to some reports, it appears he was used by the DINA in Brussels around 1974. The CIA-backed Chilean secret police seeked out intelligence-backed fascists in Europe to help eliminate dissidents who fled and to counter hostile propaganda. Latinus was pretty close to DINA and therefore American hegemony, but he mentioned precisely working for Haig's organization before he fled in 81, and that's right when Haig was NATO Supreme Allied Commander, 74 to 89. Did he work for Haig through Gladio? In an interview given to Renee Haquin, Latinus claims he was recruited in 1967 by a foreign organization whose goal is to fight by all means against Soviet communism. Sounds exactly like Gladio, which is NATO by extension. He received NATO training in 73 and in 77 infiltrated Front de la Jeunesse. There we go. That's the one. Front de la Jeunesse. That is the one I was struggling to remember earlier. To create Westland New Post. So he received NATO training and then infiltrated their publishing thing and then created Westland New Post. I'm still a little shady on how that works, how that goes from one to the other. That right there, the Front de la Jeunesse to Westland New Post. I don't know, maybe one of these threads I dig through more will kind of make more sense. Either way, let's keep moving. This is all in Belgium, so none of this is useful for us. There's more depth to it. To justify the creation of WNP, the organization he worked for said Belgium's intelligence was swarming with KGB sympathizers. In order to justify it, the organization he worked for said that who were manipulating the Front de la Jeunesse to get to CPIC, accused of financing the front, and that had to stop. Accused of financing. All right, so it sounds like they're saying that almost like there was like a KGB infiltration where they were trying to infiltrate their groups, and so that's why they needed to do some stuff. Okay. And that is what he achieved around 1980. There's more about WNP, a neo-Nazi organization whose strings are being pulled by Gladio / Latinus, who directly, and Belgium's influence, because Latinus is who created WNP. As a Soretti agent, Christian Smets infiltrated the group and gave surveillance lessons. So here's a thread we've read before that connects to Paul Latinus, which we talked about him before. To reinforce NATO security in Belgium, Westland's New Post's first mission on orders from Latinus and the ones above him was to steal sensible NATO documents to prove to everyone that KGB agents could, in theory, do the same in words. But the KGB didn't have insiders like WNP. So I know it sounds confusing, but the plan they're making is that they're essentially going to get NATO documents of some level of import, so that way they can go, oh my God, people are stealing NATO documents. And they're going to leak them, and they're essentially going to make it look like the KGB did it. And then even if it is the KGB, even if they somehow it is found out the KGB didn't do it, then they go, now the narrative is, well, they could do it. So to prove it's a possibility. It sounds like a kind of your generic false flag. Although, obviously not quite, the normal false flag in the sense of someone dying, but we're going to do an action, we're going to blame an action on somebody else, and that way we can get our results, even though it was really us the whole time. Even the NATO documents theft started around 1981 and was focused on the Evere NATO headquarters in Belgium and its transmission center, who, Michel Liebert, who's someone we've talked about before, he was the individual who essentially looked like he got some sort of intel for the Brabant killings, and he was claiming he was getting cover from the gendarmerie while he was doing it. I believe he even said this Sorete as well. So now this guy was a WNP member and a Navy officer. So then the WNP was, once again, Westland New Post. That's that right-wing paramilitary organization through which clearly Gladio was operating out of. Anyways, so he was a member of that. He also was a Navy officer, and he had access to it in his capacity as a Navy officer through military friends and WNP sympathizers who worked there. The way WMP were able to get their hands on the NATO confidential documents was pretty simple. Friendly CTR, Transmission Center, officers would meet with other officers who didn't have access to CTR and would give them the files, who would then give them to WMP members. So they literally just had someone who had access to it give it to somebody else who gave it to them. That's it. There were different levels of encryption, and the documents stolen by WMP were unencrypted solely because they were low-level documents and had went through NATO's automatic unencrypting procedure. For more important files, there was better encryption through complex grids. So it wasn't even important documents. WMP ended up with 2 decrypting grids without high-level documents to decrypt, around 100 level or low-level messages, as well as outdated headquarters paths. They did have a NATO copy of Stability Operations Intelligence describing intelligence support to U.S. stability operations. All right, here are the documents. These look like they're actually in English, so that's cool. Here's just one of the documents they had. I don't know, some intelligence-related shit. WNP got found out when Marcel Barbier, which we've covered this before, a member was drunkenly fighting with his brother. An immigrant man tried to stop them, but Barbier then shot towards him. The cops quickly arrived. They will find the NATO files laying around with his home around amongst his WMP and front files. In short, a Gladio-backed neo-Nazi organization were given by NATO insiders low-level security files to try and stir a sentiment that NATO and Belgium needed better security against the lurking evil KGB who had infiltrated the Sûreté, Belgium's intelligence service. So, the first attempt at destabilizing Belgium wasn't a total failure, but it wasn't enough, clearly. Their next project would be the one, though. And then here's photos. Here's composite sketches of the people involved in the Brabant killings. And that's the end of that thread. I thought that was an interesting thread for us to go to. I have another one for you guys tomorrow. Let's pop in and see what you guys have to say, and let's get out of here. Here we go. Here's Allura says, thanks for your input. The sad thing is only those in power are the propaganda. The Palestinians are not cattle, nor are their children. Building on fresh graves is despicable. I agree. It's pretty fucked up what's going on over there. All right, guys, we are at an hour and a half. We've covered everything I mean to today. Probably could have got through some of the other things that I had wanted to, but I mean, tomorrow I had like a I had a Defend the Guard thing I wanted to read, and then also a Milo Yiannopoulos, both of which were kind of longer. So we'll probably cover those tomorrow. So if that was something you were looking forward to, well, stick around and show up tomorrow. Tomorrow, Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Hopefully, I mean, nothing weird goes on. I think Austin should be joining us tomorrow. He mentioned something about coming tomorrow. So, and yeah, we have a big week next week. Me on God, I'm such a fucking brain fart. Me on William Ramsey. And then also we have on Wednesday, we're going back on Tinfoil Hat. I just had on Thursday, I had on at Richard Booth and Jonathan Franklin. We had a kind of like a round table discussion type stuff on the Oklahoma City bombing. That was really interesting. That will be out on Friday for the public. For the patrons, it's already there. I also will be recording on Sunday. I'll be recording with Stephen DeLay, which is tomorrow. Tomorrow night, I will be recording with him to talk about it, do like a True Detective episode, because I've been wanting to do that for a while, do an analysis of it. So pop in for that. Also, I just told you guys I'm doing 2 episodes. I'm going to try to keep the streak up, and I'm going to try to keep doing 2 episodes a week. And so just for the patrons and for the public, the patrons, I'm going to start, I'm still only releasing 1 a week for now, but that'll give me a little bit of a, after I do this for a couple weeks, that we're producing 2 a week for you guys, that'll put it so we have 2 behind the paywall at basically all times. So that'll be the move. So you guys will have 2 behind the paywall, and then give it a few weeks. Once enough have built up behind the paywall, I'll start releasing 2 a week to the public. So we're stepping up the operations over here. So we're gonna start doing 2 a week. So just letting you guys know that. So and also for anyone who's interested about when it'll drop. So the one on Sunday won't be released for probably 2 weeks. So the one we record on tomorrow won't go out to y'all until for 2 weeks from now. So just letting you guys know, you patrons, you guys are getting a good deal right now, and it's only going to get sweeter. And so is the public. So just give it a little bit of time. But if you want to support what I'm doing with that, or on that side of things, if you want to be able to get stuff early and support my efforts in doing more, because this is a world we live in, there are bills to be paid. If you want to incentivize more of this, you kind of got to add a little money in the pot, or at the very least help boost it. But with that, though, if you do want to support what I'm doing, you can do that without using any sort of money, just by sharing, subscribing, following me on Twitter. You can contribute to the show by tagging me and stuff. If there's things you want to be covered in the show, just kind of be my eyes out there in the world. Those are all things you can do to help. Just sharing, subscribing. Those help a lot. For example, if you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, go leave a like right now. Helps out a bunch. If you're listening to this on audio, go leave a 5-star review. Helps out a ton. But if you really, really, really want to help the show, you really want to help this take off, money's king. Cash is king, baby. But that's the sponsor, or that's a patrons. That's patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. And I also try to do my best to give you guys some sort of perks. As I just mentioned, I think going forward, we're going to start having 2 behind the paywall. So you guys will get 2 episodes. I guess technically now you'll be getting, instead of a 1-week paywall, you're getting a 2-week paywall. So, you'll be getting stuff 2 weeks earlier than the pores, and also there'll be 2 episodes behind the paywall for you. That you also can, for me and Austin's Already Dead series, our weekly live call-in show. You guys can do a video call in if you are a patron at the $2 level. Give you the link. You can be a talking head on the second half of the show, which is the call-in portion, and shoot the shit with me and Austin. Also, you can get an ad-free RSS feed. So if you are an audio listener and you don't like the ads that you're hearing, then hey, there's a $2 option out there for you if you want to get rid of those ads and support the show while you're at it. But yeah, that's patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Lowest level is $2. Highest levels are my sponsors, and I read them off every episode to just give them a shout out and say, hey, love you guys. Thanks for what you're doing. My co-host on Tower Gang, at Tower Gang Toad, also at Abrogate D's, at ZOVRACK, at _Infant Zeal, then Tim Tuttle, at Jolly on Klebo, then Will Bell's Delicious Blueberry Rabbit Eye Wine, big fan of the show, Torn May, then also at INWARD Lover, because we all should learn to look inward and learn to love ourselves, and the world will be a much better place. But follow me on Twitter. I already mentioned that. Well, with that, guys, I think we're out of here. Deuces. Show back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern for another morning dump, even though this is an evening dump. But this isn't gonna be a regular thing. I'm trying to hit the 10 o'clocks. But sometimes life gets the best of us. And with that, we're out of here. I'll see you guys tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern.